want you now. Your time has come. Now gaze deep into your mind. Well, some people are unkind, and I'm not really sure, I wonder why. They go to Golden Park to drink beer, to drink beer, to drink beer, to drink beer, to drink beer.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Full Pint Podcast. This is a show where we talk about current trends and topics in the world of beer with some of the most interesting, famous, and influential members of the beer industry. I am your host, Danny Fullpint, co-founder of thefullpint.com. Today, we are joined by our president, Andy Carter, and brewer at Firestone Walker Propagator, Sam Tierney. Before we begin this episode, we'd like you to know that you can find the show on most podcast platforms. Please follow us on social media platforms at The Full Pint. Now, let's welcome to the show our president, Andy Carter, and our good friend, Sam. How's it going, guys?
Hey, Danny. We're in 2026 now. 2025 is behind us. Whatever stupid, hazy IPAs you made, they're done. The future is clear. The future is West Coast IPAs.
Okay, it's not the year of the lager is what you're telling me.
It's not the year of the lagers. We're back to bitterness, baby.
Sam, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Danny. Thanks. Really appreciate you guys having me on for this. And yeah, I agree. Year of bitter. I haven't brewed a lager yet this year.
Well, we still have time. And I'll tell you what, you guys are in for a treat today. We're going to be looking back on 2025, and then we're going to give our predictions, our wishes and hopes for 2026. But I wanted to, because we took a little Christmas break, little winter break, I wanted to just fill you guys in on a little story of November of 2025 for the Full Pint. Within 2 days, Johnny and I got invited to Selly Drippins in Mills River, North Carolina, which is Sierra Nevada's version of Pliny the Younger, so to speak. And then I got a phone call from Rob Croxall, owner of El Segundo Brewing, and he called me up and nonchalantly asked me if I would host a private event with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So to go back to the Selly Drippins, Johnny and I flew out to Mills River. We rented an Airbnb, and we got to do a private tasting of Selly Drippins with some of the legacy beer media, which was a real hoot. John Hull was there, Lou Bryson, which is a bucket list thing for me to do, is to meet Lou Bryson. For those of you living under a rock, he authors some of the best whiskey books in the world. He's a spirits writer. And I'm pretty sure if we went on Maury Povich, we'd find out that he is, in fact, my father. And then to Stone Cold Steve Austin, we have about a 10-year relationship with Steve. So where 10 years ago, El Segundo Brewing did a celebrity crossover beer called Broken Skull IPA. And there's no secret that I'm a wrestling fan. I have little wrestling men behind me over here and pretend belts and all that. And I stopped maturing at age 10. But Rob had Johnny and I meet Stone Cold about 10 years ago. We got to go to his house, podcast with him, get blacked out drunk with him. And after all these years, he still remembers us and still likes hanging out with Johnny and I, even though we're just a bunch of goofy beer drinking dads. And we hosted this private event where also Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch showed up, and it was just surreal. And then we started making some quick social media clips, which you can see on the Full Pint's Instagram page, where we do funny little videos with Stone Cold, and it was a hoot.
So, Danny, the thinking like you combine some of your two favorite things. I mean, unless sourdough bread and barbecue could have been involved, I don't know how more perfect it could have been. How did you walk that, the beer side, the wrestling side? How did that all go? Maybe that was behind the scenes. Maybe there's some BTS footage of that, but how did that all work out for you?
Just trying not to lose my crap like a fangirl, or what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Were you just oh, we're talking about beer, but what about this one random wrestling match so long ago? I mean, I don't know.
So what's funny is I'm usually cool as a cucumber and not starstruck, but every time I get around him, my body goes into shock, like it's the first time I meet him, and it takes me about 30 minutes to just calm down and talk like a normal person to him, but we do chat up about wrestling. We'll talk about some old wrestling or whatever is on TV right now, and we have a good time with that. And I don't get too in the weeds with him, but he's a fan. He's a lifelong fan. I'm a lifelong fan. I still got to get him to sign some stuff of mine. I still got some memorabilia I'd like to get signed, so we'll see if we can do that. And I'm glad that he appreciates the West Coast IPA.
Sure.
And fun fact, Sam, I don't know if you were the brewer there at the time. Steve used to live, I want to say, 500 feet from the Propagator.
Yeah, I heard that. I moved down here in 2019, and my recollection is he may have just moved because I may have seen him once, but it sure wasn't the normal interactions that I heard about.
Right, and it was, you think of someone like one of the biggest stars in wrestling, and just having this, I wouldn't call it a condo, but you know what you get for your money in on the West Side, and so it wasn't a mansion; it was what I would call a normal home. And I know that he was itching to, live on a ranch, the Broken Skull Ranch, as it were. And so he's in Sparks, Nevada now on tons of land, drives around a Kawasaki mule with kitty cats and dogs. And I don't think he'll ever be back to Los Angeles now that, he's in his 60s now. So, but very big wrestling fan.
I recall that they told me that he was a big Sakaba fan.
Yeah,
nice. A little barley wine
that used to be his.
That's cool.
His standard pour when he would come by. Yeah,
nice.
But I remember he was so loyal to what he was doing with El Segundo that I feel like he didn't want to be caught enjoying Firestone Walker's IPAs. Because I would say, like, dude, you're right next to the Propagator. You got to be draining this beer. This is how awesome. He's like, it's all right. It's whatever. And I'm just like, I get it. He's like, no, El Segundo's the one. And I'm like, I love El Segundo's IPAs, but he really was keeping his guard up for El Segundo, which I appreciate. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's take a look back on 2025. My overall sentiment of 2025 was it was kind of a year that things kind of leveled off for trends and, the disruption of COVID-19. And I took down some notes, and first thing I want to get your guys' take on is I'd say for the last 5 years, there's been this vibe of the RTDs are killing the craft beer industry. Seltzers, White Claws taking over craft beer and stealing our taps and our cans and our dollars. THC drinks, all that. I don't think it happened. I don't think that those things bit the neck of beer. And I wanted to get your guys' take if it's just that people aren't feeling that way, but it's still happening, or if it's real, the sky didn't fall.
Well, I do think that, RTDs are still making a big play in the market. And, the shift to spirits based RTD has been pretty interesting and is still kind of progressing. So I wouldn't say that space isn't something that's going to keep going. But yeah, as far as beer goes, I wonder, it does seem like the energy with Seltzer has definitely kind of petered out, as far as I'm concerned. The energy in beer, yeah, it's interesting to see where it's going. I'm not going to pretend to have the answers there, but I do kind of think that the other market segments that we've been worried about are mostly not. I don't know. You got that.
I think it's like, I think to your point, just to riff off of that, is like beer is still there. And I think my reflection on 2025 is like maybe going in, we're like, oh, how many breweries are going to close? There's going to be just so many closing because they can't make it work. But that's not the case. The people that closed, in my opinion, especially around us, California, maybe slightly regional, are people that had just business models that didn't work, or their beer was substandard and they couldn't keep it going. And it wasn't that beer as a whole is not attractive. high quality beer is still attractive. Stories are still attractive, and it's not that that's the case. And I think the thinking and Danny's point was that, oh, these other drinks are going to eat our lunch because we're not that. And that's, I think, still, I don't think that it materializes. I just don't think it happened. I mean, seltzers, they're still around, but they are what they are. I mean, to the point where I think the one observation I had with seltzers is like Truly and White Claw had to invent non-alcoholic seltzer, i.e. water, to keep their brands going. They didn't have to just keep doing seltzer, right? They had to do something else. That was just, again, it's water with more steps. So that's one. I mean, beer, which I know Danny's going to hate me for saying this, but NA's Athletic coming in hard, still delivering and only expanding their presence. And that's a different side of it, right? It's just non-alcoholic beer, something you could produce as a brewery, but it's a different market segment, different cost structure. But I just think the alternatives didn't happen. And I think also importantly, THC based drinks are just a complete kerfuffle across all federal and state regulation. It's not clear where you sell it, how much you can sell of it, and no state is consistent. So it's a very segmented marketplace and isn't like taken over breweries to the capacity that maybe they thought they could in the early 2025. So I think beer is still very good. I think what happened in 2025 was strictly businesses that just couldn't keep up, and they would have collapsed regardless of how much beer was being sold.
I just remember the feeling the feeling in the air was that it was the enemy, right? It was, that's it. White Claw's coming for us. I'm a small brewery under 5,000 barrels. I'm now forced to make a seltzer or I'm going to go out of business too. And I just am not getting that anymore. I'm seeing it less coming from the craft brewery. I'm seeing a lot of, like, let's say you're at Target, you'll see like 5-6 really fancy looking brands of seltzer you've never heard of with some nice packaging, but you're not seeing the forced line extension that we were seeing like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, I do think that part of that is downstream from the shelf set pressures that breweries deal with in distribution. So like for us, it would be a really heavy lift to get a seltzer out, with the rest of our stuff on the shelves, and it's just not worth it. And seltzer's found a really comfortable place in our tap rooms, and I think that has for a lot of breweries. I mean, you go to a lot of, even somebody like Green Cheek, one of my favorite breweries in Southern California, always has some seltzer, some, their lavender lemonade is a huge seller for them.
So good.
And I think that, yeah, a lot of brewers that are great brewers found ways to make seltzer that was authentic to them and was really good. And one of our best sellers in the tap rooms is our seltzer that we always have around, but we don't package it. It's just because I think right now people are coming in, they're expecting something around that space, and we like to have fun with it and offer a rotating selection. I mean, kind of same thing with NA. It's like people are expecting an NA as well. So you go to a lot of tap rooms. If brewers don't make NA, a lot of times they'll have another NA that they like that they'll keep on just because they want to be able to offer that option to people.
Yeah, I'll see a little box of Athletic in the cooler with the oranges or whatever they garnish their drinks with. So just that way they can check that box.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So that's the change that I saw in 2025, right? Like that's exactly what I'm talking about. It wasn't the let's scramble to get a seltzer out in the forefront. It's okay, we're a brewery, people like seltzer. Here's a can of or a can of NA or a can of seltzer, but people aren't intimidated and they're not forcing it like I felt like the last few years. And that was the change I felt. And I know I'm not trying to push that on you guys. I'm just wondering if you saw that or felt that. You guys travel in different circles. So I just didn't, that's my take is that has calmed down a bit. The other thing I noticed in a shift in trends that kind of I think our listeners would cheer for is the fruit cans, the slushy, the smoothie beers, and the sweet lactose IPAs. They seem to have subsided a bit. I would say that was almost not in the conversation for 2025.
The one thing, and I don't know if it was AI generated, you guys can tell me this. There were sometimes I would see videos of like people pouring cans that looked like they were pouring Play-Doh out of cans. I don't know what that was. They looked like there was like expired paint. So I don't know what that was about. I don't know if that was just a bit, but I saw that a few too many times. I don't know if you guys saw that. But I think you're right, Danny. Like, I think the whole idea of the crazy brand extensions, fruit plus beer. I mean, there were fruited beers, don't get me wrong, but like just adding adjectives did not occur nearly as much as it used to, where it was like, well, this was good, add something else to it. That did not happen. That was not a part of 2025. Was more of a consolidation around brands that worked, brands that could sell, and stories that you could tell to a draft system, a tasting room, so on and so forth.
Right. That's what I kind of observed and felt. There was, everyone likes to use the term market correction, especially surrounding all the closures, right? They keep using, oh, this is a market correction. This isn't a sign of a recession or a beer recession, but rather just, a market correction. And it just seems like people were, as a whole, the people that were hanging in there stopped leaning so heavily on those gimmicks. And I'm hoping I'm right. Maybe I'm being too hopeful, but it just seemed like people were kind of getting back to the basics, or getting closer to center.
Yeah, I think it could be a reflection of, any new trend gets super popular, right? And like everyone wants to jump on it. They want to think, is this the next thing coming along that might be the next, hazy IPA or West Coast IPA? Like there are trends that fundamentally change the industry. I mean, light lager had a decades long reign and it's essentially still going, right? So, you never know when you need to jump on it. So you do to be safe, and then it doesn't work for everybody. And,
Right.
it might just level off to be, it's like you go to a brew pub, an old school brew pub, and you got your brown, your amber, your pale, your IPA, your blonde, right? And so like some of these trends might just settle into that niche of like, it's just something that's on at the tap room. It's not a big seller. It's not a big trend, but there's a small group of people that are like, that's what I like to drink, so maybe we're just fundamentally seeing a shift in the standard lineup of the American craft brewery to include some of these new things, even if they're not the biggest seller.
Right. Andy, what do we got next, man?
I added one just to the mix just to look back. Something I noticed a few years ago, given inflation and pressures in the United States, that the price of a pint was going to go up, and I think this year we added another. In my estimate, depending on where you drink now, Los Angeles is not a barometer for the rest of the United States, but it's some measurement that another $1 was added to your pint, and at least in the United States, at least in that Los Angeles area. A craft beer could be maybe $8 to $10 a pint, and I think we finally got to that $9 to $10 range, depending on where you go, depending if you're in a brewery. I mainly go these days to bars. I don't hang out at breweries as much, but I think that was fully like added to the cost. I think you still see, which is good. I think you still see a price differential, lower. Some type of lower alcohol beer or some other beer is a lower price. They try to work that as an option, and then there's a higher, like a by alcohol, by not say rarity. I mean, I know one place in particular, they will always just charge more for a pint of the elder. Like it doesn't matter. Like it could be the same exact beer. It's just going to be $2 more, period, regardless of it. But then there will also still have like a can. So like the draft will be more, but then the can beer of a light lager or just a premium lager will still be $5. I'll try to maintain that price while increasing other prices. And, if you look at other wine or something like that, I don't know. I don't have this in my head, rapidly speaking, but, I see watch beer prices. Wine, I don't think has gone through the same level of like bulk price or wholesale price correction, whereas like you can still you'll pay whatever you want for a glass of wine, and then mixed drinks. I mean, it's just all over the place where how much those are going to cost. But especially for beer, I think we finally got to that $9 to $10 price. Which a few years ago, if you had said it's $10 a beer, it'd be like, are you in an airport? Like, where are you? Like, why is it that much versus now? But I will say those places that are charging that much, I am not seeing a drop off in attendance. I'm only seeing more people go. Now, that means they're there and they're doing something, and this could be a bar that has an activity that's costs money, or I'm speaking about Waltz, which has pinball, so there's something to pay for. They sell some food. There could be a lot of people not drinking or drinking something else. They still charge for those things. They don't if you want a seltzer water, it costs so much money. So people are still going out. So I think in the end, my calculus here is, the pint price, I think we're stabilizing finally on the pint price, but I don't think this is a dropping attendance because people are changing their behaviors when they go out there. Maybe that night they're having a few more cheaper beers, or maybe not having as many expensive beers, or they're just bringing other people along. So overall, these businesses are doing well, but these businesses are also doing well because they're making money from multiple revenue streams that are not just high end alcohol sales, is what I'll say, or middle high end alcohol sales.
Yeah, I admittedly am not going to bars as much. I visited finally Waltz in 2025, which I love. And
my man,
to me, if you don't have an experience tied to that visit, it's not worth it. So when we were in Mills River, right, I had my brother come out, and my brother is only a data point for me. He's not a survey of the whole world. He's a man in his early 40s. He loves beer. He can't stand sitting in a craft beer tap room. He hates the metal stools. He hates the reclaimed wood, the Edison bulbs. He hates all of it. And we went to Burial Beer, right? Which is like, that's the top of my list, right? Like, I'm in Asheville, number 1A. This is where I want to go. And he was like, thumbs down. He's like, I don't know why anyone would want to sit there. I'm like, I don't know. It's just because I'm there for the beer.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need a TV. I need sports. I need people to talk to.
Sure.
And, he's regular John Q. Public. So I get that. So I think there has to be, if you're going to command a good price for liquor, you do need an experience, whatever that is, even if it's not the sports bar vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think there's a ceiling, and I think it'll be a point where people are sitting on beer that's not moving. So I don't know what that point is yet.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I mean, I think just pull in Sam. The Propagator has your beers. It has a restaurant attached to it, so you're seeing much more people going just for food. So I don't think you suffer the same consequences as just a bar. But what do you think? What do you see there?
No, yeah. I mean, operating restaurants in Los Angeles certainly isn't easy these days, and I was just reading an article, just retrospective over, high profile places that closed over the last year. And, there's a lot of factors that go into that on the hospitality side. And a lot of it's, the cost of doing business and the economics of hospitality are difficult these days. But I think, the places that can survive, as long as they have the business fundamentals sound, are, offering that experience like, you guys were talking about. And like, you got to offer something exceptional that people want to come out for, either that. I mean, there's always room for the local place that delivers high quality, good value, and is convenient, but, I think we like to be this mix of like, it's a destination, a lot of people come into town. We're by the airport. Having food and having a large outdoor beer garden is a huge part of it. We have some of the best weather in the country. So being able to take advantage of that's been huge over the last few years since COVID. We've done a bunch of remodeling and we have this giant outdoor space now. And, like my daughter's in preschool now and meeting all these young parents, we talk about the places we like to go. And we're already one of the number one places. And people love coming here just because, like in the risk of causing more controversy, bringing up kids. It's like, now I'm the age where, I have a young family and I don't go out much without the kids, I mean, I'd say, obviously with like beer industry functions, there's that thing, and that's pretty much it. And then, it's like, where can you take the family? And so, there's some killer places, it's like, if it's maybe great smash burgers with a good beer selection, or, something like that. So yeah, I still think it's like, if you can be the whole package, like high quality food, great atmosphere, like, you can still make it happen. But the days of, the kind of cliched tap room that doesn't really have much going on and doesn't have a very stimulating environment, the warehouse, the hard furnishings, the lack of ambiance, like, I think it's really difficult, So yeah, it's really, and of course, like, obviously being in a big high profile food town, a lot of restaurants, they have these very high concept experiential things going on where, the ambiance and the decor and the food and everything and the design, it's all next level. And, it's inspiring to go to breweries that kind of play into that too and take that seriously, and it's not like there aren't any craft breweries that have done that going back. There are some great examples of that, but I think these days, people want that higher level hospitality experience. If they're going to go spend how much money it costs to go out, it's harder in dollars. So make it worth it.
Right. Right. But yeah, I just yeah, exactly. I do most of my drinking in my back patio at a table out in my backyard. I can smoke a cigar. I can wear whatever I want. I can wear sweatpants and not feel bad like I'm at a. I don't go to a restaurant in sweatpants if I can help it, uh, or Crocs. So and the price is right. So there's still plenty of great options to order beer, getting beer shipped. So uh, it has to be a great experience. I still, before I was out of work, I was traveling to San Diego once a week. I have a job now, by the way, everybody. I would go to San Diego once a week, and as soon as it was quitting time, I would go somewhere great, and oftentimes I would stay in Oceanside. And I can't stress it enough. Craft Coast beer and tacos. Like, here's the experience. You're getting some of the best tacos in the world. You're probably like, 500 yards from the beach, and fresh beer. Right down the street, Green Cheek, which is the old Bagby location. Great place to drink beer. You need some vibes. You need some people watching. You need some food. It's all got to be there. It can't just be one of those things.
Yeah.
And, keep it under, I would say for me, the sweet spot is no more than $8 a pour. And I'm hoping that if it's an IPA or a lager, it's 16 ounces or 20 ounces.
Getting tough in Los Angeles, big dog.
I hear you. I hear you. Nothing makes me more mad than a lager or a single IPA and a tulip. Like, I get mad. Like, I feel like I'm being ripped off.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Our lagers, half-liter Willie Becker glass, IPAs, our ales, English pint, full-size pint glass. So I'm 100% there with you. We do the Tubinger mugs now for the Lucre Fawcett pours, which is, we like to get a Czech style lager on there, but sometimes it's a German style lager too. And, that mug's just the best way to present the beer off that, with all the nice,
so wonderful
thick foam you get off of it. Yeah.
So, changing gears, Andy, we had a couple high-profile brewery closings this year, and we see other people still hanging on for dear life. What happened in 2025?
2025, 21st Amendment. If you're not aware of them, is it Live Free or Die High Watermelon? Or is it Hell or High Water?
Brew Free or Hell or High Watermelon, and then they had like a Brew Free or Die IPA.
So this is a very timeless brewery in San Francisco. It is interesting, San Francisco, the upper sides of Northern California, Sierra Nevada, and then Anchor, and all these places, they're all incubating talent. And you had the 21st Amendment, very important to the original homebrew scene. of Northern California. They were talking about, oh, we got to sell now. Hey, we're just going to close. And so they've shuttered, and they had a great restaurant and a couple tasting rooms. And so that was a stalwart of that brand, but also, and I think this one to me hits home harder because 21st Amendment wasn't distributed in Southern California, was the closure of the Beard brand, the Portland brewery. And now my age is showing because now I can't just say the word out loud. What is the name of the brewery? Jesus Christ. Danny, help me.
Rogue Brewing.
Rogue, sorry.
Rogue. Yeah.
Rogue Brewing. The Voodoo Donuts Brewery is closed. Now, I don't know if that's a Freudian slip that I couldn't remember the name of the brewery, but Rogue is closed.
No, that's exactly probably why they closed.
And so, and I think Rogue is funny because, especially when I was just started craft beer and when I was living in the Midwest, the two breweries that I got the most of, or most variety of, not just the most beer or the freshest, other than Sierra Nevada, was Stone and Rogue. Like Stone and Rogue, like those were your craft breweries. Like if you were, it doesn't matter
Painted
where
bottles.
if you didn't matter where you were living in the United States, those are the two breweries that like you had a couple bottles of, or the guy was like, "Shh, I got something for you in the back." If you were in like Illinois, like that's where you had. And so that one is super interesting because another brewery where kind of like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, flagship. Okay, great. You could find it. Good for all time zones. Rogue Dead Guy, Maibach, another kind of like, is this what style? What's going on here? And then as craft beer started clicking in the last the previous 10 years, so like the last 20 or so years, they started expanding. They had more brands, and then they started. I don't remember, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember a brewery getting as hard into cross promotion as they did with Voodoo Donuts, another Portland-based small business that makes crazy donuts. If you've never gone,
Rogue had a lasting impression with all their early to mid 2000 gimmicks. Sam, we were on Rate Beer together during this time. You probably went to wherever you could to tick every one of those silly Rogue beers, right? Old Crustacean, the Imperial Stout. I mean, they got you with their beautiful branding. And this was like, again, you said Stone also, both painted labels, both like kind of the early days of Gotta Catch 'Em All. It's like, okay, this is attractive. Well, let's tick this.
Yeah, and do you remember Rogue also did those ceramic, I think they were swing tops, like the cross.
Old Crustacean was in the ceramic. There was a couple
wild,
more.
and they were expensive too. That was like they were at the forefront of like pushing the price on craft bottles with those. I remember going to their pub in San Francisco. This might have been during the Rate Beer Summer Gathering, like 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going like, oh, like it was, there weren't that many breweries in San Francisco back then. And that was one of the few spots you could hit, for I guess, it was just like a tap room restaurant. Tried a bunch of the beers there. Yeah. No, I definitely had a lot of cool beers from Rogue over the years. I mean, just like any brewery that swings for the fences and does a lot of interesting concepts, they're not all going to land with everybody, and that's okay. I mean, the Sriracha beer was pretty wild with the Hoi Fong Sriracha sauce
that
stout.
Yeah, about that already.
That was probably
they really
the wildest.
did. Yeah. The Dead Guy was a cool concept. Like maybe they were just ahead of their time. I think a lot of people say that about these situations, but like I remember, I think they had like a glow in the dark Dead Guy ale label one year. Like they really did try every cool gimmick to get the casual person.
But it's like when it's like, so okay, to beer to some extent is marketing with, there's something inside the glass that you're going to drink, and then there's marketing attached to it. Any light lager is going to focus on how many football players and how many famous people drink the beer, and then the beer is secondary. But craft beer, try to flip that around and say, what's inside this is the most important. Don't drink this beer if you're a wussy, like type of Stone thing. But when you start to put too many coats of paint on the outside of it, like I think you start to lose connection, right, to what you're making.
Right.
And I think that's where they got too far. Like, how many times do I need to see the pink Voodoo Donuts bomber that's not moving and not getting anyone.
And I think that's why
interested,
I
right?
stopped bothering with Rogue, because I just looked at it as a gimmick.
That's, I think, the
No,
problem.
and nobody
right?
was talking about, no, dude. I think one of their famous beers was a bitter or something, and supposedly that thing won medals for years.
For
But
sure, for sure.
nobody's ever. It was never in the conversation of, dude, these beers are world class. Like they talk about with, say, something like Sierra Nevada or whatever.
Yeah, because you got too far into this business model of selling based on a concept or a collaboration. And I have
Right.
some notes about that for 2026, but they missed, they went that far away and then they couldn't bring it back.
Right. I did want to eulogize 21st Amendment, which might have a second act. And I just wanted to say that if I were to summarize it in a one sentence, like what happened, I would say, okay, they over leveraged.
Mhm.
But I would want to talk about that I thought they did right. And that was creating a brand and storytelling, right? So right off the bat, they made their two co-founders characters, which I think is super important. And then they had a story behind all the beers that hit the shelf. So it wasn't like, what is this? It was like, here's a full story. Here's very clear what I'm picking up and buying. And I thought they did that really well. I don't think I enjoyed what made it to the shelf, but I think that was a product of them trying to fling far and wide. Like they weren't focusing on making world-class beer. I think they were like, let's get this to market as many shelves as possible.
I will say, I think also 21st Amendment actually come to the forefront of some packaging. Lord de Boom barley wine was one of those first small cans in the the skinny cans, and that went
Remember
out to
that?
distro.
That was
So
fun.
they were thinking ahead, were thinking through, and I think that is channeled through a lot of their homebrewing roots. They sponsored a lot of homebrewers, homebrewed podcasts. They're very involved in that. But eventually, as a business grows, and I think this is the kind of talking to the previous things we talked about, when you run a restaurant, what are you getting out of it, and are you getting the return? And having multiple business models within it, a brewery, a tasting room, a kitchen, distribution, which is very interesting. It really never got down to Southern California, so really it was, I don't even know where they were specifically distributing, or unless they were just not here, but it was not a brewery that was growing a lot of like package sales. And then what are they doing? They're old enough, in my mind, and if we just think about some people in the room, they're old enough to have done their own festival, right? Why was there no 21st Amendment beer, SF Beer Fest? Like where are they growing their footprint into some new ideas, right? That a brewery of their matriculation could have done to bring in new blood, bring in new people. So there is that. But I do think they tried, and I think they did a good job for what they had. But they just, if they get comfortable, you get comfortable in a band of operation, then it just doesn't go. You're if you're not growing or keeping afloat, then you're going to slowly kind of sink in, and then maybe that's what happened to them.
Yeah, but I also know they were, and towards the end, they were contract brewing and even making Ballast Point beer, even as short as a year ago. But there seems to be some common thread. Sam, maybe you can crack this nut. You're a little more in tune with that side of California. We saw Drake's kind of consolidate with Bear Republic. We saw Anchor close. 21st Amendment. All that to say, it seems like it's very hard to be a production brewery in the Silicon Valley or the Bay Area.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I think that just points to the reality of the difficulty of operating in the Bay Area. It's expensive, and the being the kind of epicenter of tech and that continued influence has done a lot, I think. And it makes it hard. I think you've just got to have a really tight business model that works. I see somebody like Fieldwork up there that just keeps opening tap room after tap room after tap room, and I think they're just completely crushing it in that space because they've kind of cracked like what works in the Bay Area, and it's that direct to consumer, the tap rooms
Experience.
are all exactly. It's the experience. They offer a really tight brand, good beer, and people just like going there and, engaging with the brand and drinking good beer in that space. And they're not, they do package, but that's not, it's not breaking it, or, it's not dying or living based on, just volume out in the market. I think that's where it's hard right now. And scaling, getting those economies of scale, you need certain operational costs, which I think just are harder in a more expensive area,
Right.
Yeah. So them, like Alvarado Street has opened, I think recently they opened another restaurant in Salinas. So, that whole region, I think there's some breweries that are doing really well doing the smaller, tap room restaurant space, but offering a really high level of hospitality.
I think that's key. That's key. And there was one other group I had on my list. I don't know if you guys are as familiar. So there's Voodoo Brewing out of Pennsylvania. And they were kind of like a rate beer cult favorite. I think Black Magic or something like that was they make some big beers. And they were kind of a geek cult favorite. And their owner passed away, Kurt, 2025. But we had him on the podcast where I was super interested and skeptical. They spun up a business model that I had yet to see, except for, maybe we could, the closest thing I could compare it to would be BJ's, right? But essentially, they were franchising out Voodoo Brewing to anybody who wanted to buy a franchise and put it in any city or town in America. And I think they were up at 20, 30 locations at the height of it. And I would say, since last year, or, let's say 2024, not 2025, you hear about the ones closing down one after another. So it was a new strategy that I thought was unique. But in my opinion, there could have been a lot of reasons why this didn't work. But to me, the thing that stuck out like a sore thumb was the story, right? My brother lives in Fort Myers. Back to my brother again. Fort Myers, downtown Fort Myers. Here's a Voodoo brewery. What does that mean when he walks in? What is Voodoo Brewing? What is Voodoo Brewery? And I would say in not even a year they closed.
I remember that as like a very highly ranked beer on Beer Advocate. And then they were able to try it like 0% of the time. Like no one ever bought the 12 bottle share or whatever. But that's where I remember them, and that was it.
Right. But, they took a risk in this unique model. But essentially in 2025, I would say it kind of proved to not work. And so, yeah, a lot of risks and gambles. But I think it still comes down to, there's a lot. You have to have your ducks in a row, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And I had on my list field work as another talking point, Sam. I'm glad you brought that up. That really is the feel good story of 2025, right? The Peanut Gallery would go, oh, they're just another Modern Times, just opening up a new location every 2 days, but they're not. This is not Modern Times. They're not putting in a water slide. It's just a very tight place for a white collar worker to go have some beer after work. And sometimes, they knew they found an audience and they're playing the hits. Let's see what else I have. All right, folks, let's talk about Mind Haze. Firestone Walker's lineup of hazy IPAs that doesn't just blur the lines between reality and beer, they straight up obliterate it. You've got the OG Mind Haze IPA, juicy, tropical, and smooth enough to make you think, maybe I do love hazy IPA. Then there's Mind Haze Brain Melter, an imperial hazy IPA that comes in at a brain-bending 9% ABV, because sometimes sessionable just isn't in the cards. And if you're feeling particularly unhinged, Mind Haze Cosmic Crusher is here to push the limits of human understanding, or at least your tolerance for an absurdly juicy 10% IPA. What's funny about Melter and Cosmic Crusher, they don't drink like strong beer, which is good and bad. And then there's Mind Haze Rage Turbo Radler, a hazy beer meets lemonade hybrid that exists purely to confuse beer purists and refresh the rest of us. It's big flavor, low bitterness, and exactly what you want after pretending to be productive all day. Mind Haze. Beer enlightenment, no meditation required. But seriously, folks, if you haven't tried these yet, what are you even doing? Here's something I noticed, and I'm hoping you guys can either agree with me or shoot it down, which I'd like either. It seems like the beer influencer market has cooled off in 2025, and it's more, if you see anything, it's a regular influencer that got beer in their crosshairs for a moment, but there's not as much of the blatant, we'll call it a pinup girl or whatever have you for influencers as there was 2024, 2023.
I think from my Instagram feed as a middle class white male in the United States, beer is not involved in the types of things that are in my look now for you page. I don't do TikTok. I don't know what that page is called. They've moved into supplements, exercise equipment, and other things. And the beer people that I like and enjoy have gotten into long form content. So the beer influencer is a guy or gal that's looking at like a longer story about a brewery. Sponsored content creator is sponsored or not, is thinking a little longer term, and not just, hey, I found this new beer, it's 18% alcohol, it's amazing,
right?
And it's that I think is a reflection on what are you watching and what are you interested in. If I want to have a good beer, I know where to go. I'm not hunting for that. If anything, the hunting is happening in the whiskey and the higher alcohol spirit side, and what's interesting there. And I think the funny part of that, if just as a small digression, is it's funny to say, I think American spirits is actually like 10 years is where beer was like 10 or 20 years ago. Like they're finally figuring out how to tell stories and like be passionate and creative and not just to nerds. They should tell stories to like an average human being about why you should try this. And like they have a lot more running room, which is funny to say because bourbon's like in a weird surplus flux right now. But I think there's way more running. For me. There's way more running room on bourbon and craft spirits actually in that storytelling. We'll get there eventually, but it's moved there and it's not in the beer. And that's just because, and this is something I say to home brewers. I say this to a lot of people that enjoy craft beer, like mission accomplished. Like we won. Like this is not a novel thing. You can get a very high quality beer in most places in the United States. And it's not just the same 5 major brands. It's a diversity of brands. And you don't need people that are being paid or influenced to influence you to go there, right? You don't need the influence. You know where to go. The information is readily available. And I think that's good because you're not going to get a filtered perspective on what you should drink based on who's paying for it. That doesn't remove typical traditional mass marketing or targeted marketing. It's just that you're not going to get this weird engineered, algorithmically generated reason. I leave that to what type of napkins I should buy on Instagram. I don't leave that to my drinking anymore. The feed will give me something else. So this is positive. I think the one thing is that you might miss some data. There's maybe some missing things here or there about some stuff, but I think it's in general positive. There's so many options that you should go, and the options local to you that will help your local small businesses are so much better than they used to be, and they are available. That seek those out and go to those businesses versus having to see the whole wide berth of things being shipped to you or put onto your phone. So
yeah, I think the local point is important. So much of beer is local, right? And so, I think breweries have gotten really good at telling their stories to their local communities. And the breweries that are being, seeing a lot of success right now with that are just really good. They've kind of mastered social media, newsletters, local media, local like weekly newspapers and things like that. It's funny, you'll still see, we still get the kind of local, monthly and weekly stuff in the neighborhood. And it's like, you see all the ads for local places. And I think that the kind of like the influencer at scale doesn't apply so much to the beer industry anymore, because it's like, the breweries that need influence at scale do it themselves now, are
Right.
really good and have kind of gone past that and are operating on another level. And I think, have gotten really good in the last few years. And then the breweries, the small local breweries, don't have the resources or the need to partner. You every now and then you'll see a post on like Reddit or something where somebody's like, oh, some influencer wants to come in and get a bunch of free stuff, and they'll post this and this whatever about our brewery, and it's just like, and they're like, well, I don't have, like, what's that going to do for me?
Right. No
It's like
return.
my regulars don't care, they don't know who this person is, kind of thing. And so
Right.
it's one of those things where I think it was tried, and
Yeah.
nobody really found long-term success with it, so it kind of
Right.
fizzled out.
Yep. And so I guess to put it another way of my take is beer content, online beer content, the quality has gone up, or marketing dollars are being spent better, as Sam put it. So then here's a funny one before we go into 2026. I don't know if this was a gag. You guys can tell me if this was real or a fever dream. Did Untappd open up their app to all beverages? Did that really happen?
I just don't use these apps at all, so I have no idea. And I didn't see this posted anywhere else. So this would be pretty funny, though.
Yeah, I just
Sam, did you hear that one?
Yeah, I just think I remember probably a Pilsnerish post on Instagram that was like showing all different slides of crazy check-ins of all of these
Coca-Cola
sodas,
or
Mountain Dew,
Yoo-hoo.
Starbucks.
Yeah.
It's like, but hey, I say, why not?
Right.
Doesn't the, cola drinker deserve to know which ones rank the highest?
It's just the McDonald's in Atwater Village is got the best Diet Coke. It's not bottle caps anymore. I mean, it is still a tap, I guess, but it's like how many? Yeah. It's good. It's good. Just rate the poly market, the rain bet for all drinking of anything, any liquid. We're gonna have the best one, and you're gonna find out exactly the right place to have a Coke Zero in the Los Angeles area. It'd be great.
I love it. All right, guys, 2026. I'm going to start with you, Sam, for my first point of topic, whatever. Any trends that you see 2025 for better or worse that are going to stick with us in 2026?
Well, we already talked about NA, and I think that's going to keep going. I still hear about brewers that are looking at getting into NA that aren't currently in NA, and brewers expanding NA. And I think it's not done yet. I don't think many brands are going to be big at this point. I think if Athletic can keep things going and, kind of ride out the wave into like a sustainable long-term business, they're going to continue to dominate. I think they made a huge bet on the segment and spent a ton of money, and are probably still operating at a loss because of that. And, I think it's paying off, though. I mean, they've kind of become the default. It's like they're almost like the Kleenex of non-alcoholic craft beer. It's just like,
that's true.
Oh, or do you drink Athletic, kind of thing? Which is wild, but it just shows how important good marketing and good business model is.
Sam,
and I think there's something to be admired.
Sam, I'm gonna. These predictions. They all range from like well-educated and thoughtful to full hot takes, full blown, just out of left field.
Sidewind pitch.
What do you think? Here's one. Give you this. All right, you go Athletic. I've been an Athletic apologist for God knows how many years. What do you think the odds are on a major craft brewer doing a collab with Athletic as a, hey, we have our IPA brand, we love it. You guys are gonna like cross synergies. You guys are gonna do NA, like cross promote the NA as an opportunity.
I think pretty low. I wouldn't bet too heavily on that.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's just something that we haven't really seen, have we? Like, I
mean,
can't think of a
You
single NA
you do
collab.
brewery collabs all the time. You guys love going to each other's 10-barrel systems and kicking the tires and
eating
stuff.
burritos.
And eating
Yeah.
burritos. I mean, I just see it as like it's like okay, well, you guys did it. Okay, you guys have cracked the code, and then we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean, you see this in other industries where it's like, well, you got your IP, we have my IP. Can we do? Is there some place to work? And the funny part about beer is the intellectual property really isn't that sacred. Like there's only 5 ingredients or 4 ingredients, whatever. That's like so many ingredients that so you can figure it out. But the NA part of it can be more difficult, right? Do I want to invest in this without a known business model at the end of it? Am I going to sell how many pints? But I just bring it up as a out of left field take. So
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should get him on the line. Yeah.
I don't see how athletic benefits from it. I
No,
could see
I
how
don't.
like one just popped into my head. This is gonna sound, you're gonna be like, Danny, here's the Brinks truck. Mango, like a NA mango cart collab.
No, that's what it should be. It should just be sell Golden Road to Athletic, and then you're done. Just
there
that's
you
fine.
go.
That's it. Just clean, simple.
Yeah, and it's like where that, it would probably be good for that side, but not so much the athletic
wins.
side.
Everyone wins.
All right, everyone wins.
So, all right. Left field.
Yeah.
But for other brewers, I think like there's going to be continued growth, and we're going to see more. But like I said, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of like, oh, I built my whole brand on this. Because if you're already I think there's just only so much room to grow within the conventional brewery's portfolio without going all in maybe and making that your thing. So maybe, it's just like, I don't know, like IBM never thought, Microsoft was going to take over whatever computer, it's just like, you don't see it coming till it's there sometimes. Right. So just because you've got the one big mover right now, you can't ever see what comes, what the future holds. And like, it could be something that's not even really, on the horizon yet. So like some of these brands, like these mid-strength beers that we're seeing more, there's like Dad Strength, Small Beer, a few other brands have played around with these like 2 to 3% beers as kind of this alternative to NA, right? So everyone's focused on, okay, NA, lower calories, lowering alcohol consumption. When you want to moderate, you want to drink something tasty that's, adjacent to full strength beer, but it's not quite the same. I mean, to me, that's the thing with NA is like, yeah, it's kind of a different animal, right? It's like, you're not really drinking a normal beer. It's not quite there. But the mid-strength stuff, I've had some really interesting stuff in the 2 to 3% range that I think has a much more authentic beer flavor.
Got a fermented character to it.
Yeah, exactly. You get that full fermentation character. There's enough alcohol that it balances the flavor out similarly to a full strength beer. I mean, not quite, obviously it's very light, but it's fundamentally different than an NA beer. And it still doesn't get you inebriated unless you drink at an irresponsible pace.
I've had some lovely 3% table beer Saison.
That's where I was going to say Belgian style, more yeast forward beers will help.
Are carbonated enough to where,
and I do have, and I literally
satisfying.
on this in this regard, I don't have one in my hand right now, but I have a new Athletic that's a Belgian wit beer. So right, it has a lot of character beyond the alcohol. But I was wondering, because I'm thinking through the consumer angle, where I go and hang out, there has been a debate like, okay, go have a full strength beer, it costs much money. Should it be less? Should it be similar priced? Where is the pricing? And then you have this new idea, or maybe an old idea refurbished into a new idea where it has some alcohol. If the consumer is willing to accept that larger price, the smaller delta on alcohol versus NA, then the lower alcohol doesn't really, it's all kind of in the same mix. It doesn't need, you can still make your dollar and make your reasonable margins on this thing. And actually you can sell more of them. And honestly, if we think through this for more than 5 minutes, this is Mick Ultra. This is Michelob Ultra, just in different, a horse of a different color, right? A 3% low calorie beer is just this, but let's put craft beer in front of it. Let's add some hops. Let's add some interesting yeast character. but still charge you 80% of full freight, and you'll be fine. Yeah, and I enjoy that. I think we're missing, and I see this in certain markets, it's not here yet, is that 3% beer. You see it in like Instagram, like, hey, we'll ship you this beer, 24 pack for whatever dollars. Try it out, dad beer, and mostly in like the Midwest. I don't know if I even seen it in California yet, but that 2 to 3% is very interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely an unproven segment. And, and we'll see. It's something like I've been playing around with it on the pilot scale since middle of last year, and so I'm excited to see where it goes. I think there's just I think sometimes you got to follow the trends where they go with the market, and if people want more options that are more moderate but still really flavorful, I think it's like brewers need to figure out how to get people something that tastes you know that delivers the flavor that they want, that keeps them coming back. That's
Right.
kind of like also following the trends for alcohol and calories. So it's funny. It's like, to me, it's like a challenge as a brewer. It's like, can I make an awesome super session beer essentially? Because the whole like session label kind of fizzled out, right? So in some
Nobody
ways,
liked
this is
it.
just that returning. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in a new guise, it's like everything has its time. Maybe, session never quite crested. It kind of petered out. So maybe this is the form that it will return in.
But I think you just sell it in a 20-ounce can. I think a Foster's level, you need to be serving it in a glass or a smaller glass. I don't know what it is, but there's something different. It's not the same thing, or I don't know, or we just all move alcohol down even lower. I'm not sure.
So anecdotally speaking, my beer of 2025 is the Sierra Nevada Pils in the 8.4 ounce can. And as someone who could drink beer for 12 hours, if you gave me the opportunity, pulling a half beer out of my fridge, I'm satisfied. I think that's another angle at this. Am I satisfied without the alcohol? Well, here's a, I don't know, 4.6% beer at a 8-ounce clip, which is like tomato potato, right?
I did enjoy that beer. I think when I last saw Sam, we talked a lot about this. Actually, we talked about this can a bit. I really liked the beer. I bought a few of they sell them in six packs or 8 packs, like 8 packs, right? I really liked it. But yeah, I mean, cool format, little, off the left,
Little
right
V8
field,
can.
left field. Yeah, but yeah, what do you, Sam? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great beer. It's a fun mix of like a little bit of that modern hop character, and I forget the hop. They're using like a lupulin powder dry hop. They're kind of doing a novel approach to making Pilsner.
It's definitely a modern Pilsner.
Yeah, and it's cool. But the package, yeah, I don't know. I liked it on draft a lot. And then the cans, to me, there's just something about only getting 8 ounces in a can that of a beer like that's like a drinking beer, that like.
That's how I felt when I heard about it. But if I just fill my fridge with these little treats, these little snacks, it's like, all right, I don't feel so dirty about.
It's like a little Go-Gurt for Danny.
Yeah,
I don't need a full Yoplait. I don't need a Yoplait. I don't need to put the grape nuts in it. I just have a little Go-Gurt and I go on about my day.
Yeah, I don't understand how nobody's put a Kolsch in that format yet, since that's the actual traditional Kolsch pour size, essentially.
Right.
Well, I think
I drink it out of the Stange here. Sometimes it's the little V8 can, sometimes it's the Stange, but I still, like, in between drinking like regular, let's say IPA or other things, how someone like Andy would be like, oh, I'm going to drink an athletic in between drinking real beer. For me, it's drinking a little 8-ounce can of Sierra Nevada Pils, and I feel less gross about my habits and hobbies.
It's good. I think the reason no one did it in the can format was that no one wanted to pony up the dollars to Cody or whoever to go, all right, give me the 8.4 ounce heads. Okay, fine. I'm never going to make my money back on this one. It's just the production scale now. It's like Sierra Nevada.
Oh, totally.
So
yeah, I asked our production manager, how much he would hate me if I pitched that idea to marketing. And, because, the changeover, it's like, yeah, you need dedicated equipment, the filler heads, all
the X-ray
the
cutter, the X-ray
carousels.
thing's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you're especially when you're a big brewery, right? Where we're going to commit to this as a brand. You're not just like, hey, this is a cool idea. It's like, hey, no, it's all the downstream impact on committing to it. So, I mean,
Now here's a deep cut, Sam. Didn't you guys have a special can for Rosalie?
We did, yeah. We had the slim 12s that were, so it's the same size lid, can ends as a normal 12, but with the straight side, it doesn't go out at all. So it's more like I don't know, like a White Claw, right? Or
Right.
like a seltzer format, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, could you imagine Pivo in 8.4s? Little treat. Little ice cold treat.
I want Pivo in 16s, okay? That's where I want it to go.
Yeah, I do. I like when I get a 12-ounce can of Firestone Walker IPA, I feel ripped off. Like I want a 16-ounce like Swami's.
Terry, heard it here first. Just coming right at us.
I got all these ideas. Like
here to write as sponsors.
I got plenty of them.
Got plenty.
Let's see. What else we got on here? All right, let's move.
I'm gonna throw on. Well, I want to throw one out, and you have to give me the floor. You can't stop me. This is I now own the floor. All right, cross branding. I just want to just bring this up just as an idea, and there's a concept here. So let me lay it out, and you can just tell me I'm wrong. So I noticed something interesting when I was walking around Whole Foods. There's a brand of hop water called like Hop WTR, which is like a nootropic hop water brand. This is like pre-breweries getting into hop waters, and they're collaborating with Stone. And I'm like, wait, what? What is this cross marketing? And I mean, maybe Stone is just now an intellectual property house. They're just done with like innovation. I don't know. To be determined. But I was like, okay, so breweries, generally speaking, getting into food or other things that they can bring people to the table and sell their beer. That's happening, and we've talked ad nauseum about collabs, your Supreme collab or your Voodoo Donuts collab. And so I want to just reflect a little bit on this in an adjacent market that I am very passionate about, which is the collectible card game Magic the Gathering. It existed since I was a child, and they have now recently been bought by Hasbro, which is a major conglomerate of games, and they are demanding Magic the Gathering, my friend, has to collaborate with Marvel, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Lord of the Rings. They have to take the game to the market and make more money, right? And so what's funny is initially everyone thought in the game, the real stalwarts of the game were like, this is the worst thing that's going to happen. You're going to destroy the game. What's turned out this year, after seeing Final Fantasy and Avatar: The Last Airbender collaborate and work together, those have been some of the most successful. They would be successful because of the branding alone, but the old heads love that because they merged both. They took the intellectual property of the collaborator and kept the Magic the Gathering aspects. So I will say this to breweries: if you're thinking about these collabs and don't want to go down the rogue path, make it work together. Take the best parts of each and don't just sell yourself up the river for $1 because it won't work. It just won't. You have to keep the story together. So that's my pitch. You can bring it around. But I think in the end, what will happen in 3, 4, 5 years is that people will remember what the base is. And the base they were sold was a beer they liked, as long as the story is told correctly. So we're going to go off into our genres or other places with beer and everything, but we're going to come back to beer, and that's where we're going to land in a few years. So go off and do it.
That was freaking deep.
Danny, you told me to bring it.
Dude, you brought it. You brought it. I have nothing to add to that. I'd like to see it. All right, Andrew. Let's see what we got here on our list. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, let's open it up to predictions. Sam, do you have a prediction for 2026?
I don't know any like specific aspects. I don't know. I could say
marketing, like any marketing plays, anything for the festival scene, anything for collabs, anything for mergers and acquisitions, anything for something big and devastating, expansion, consolidation. Throw it out there.
So yeah, let's see. Prediction for 2026 on a positive note. I think we're going to see Anchor back in 2026. And I may have seen a a long-time stalwart in the Bay Area brewing industry recently posted a picture on social media implying that Anchor was getting a malt delivery at the San Francisco
I
brewery.
saw that.
Go boys.
And so I guess don't get your hopes up. Maybe they're just testing the equipment out to see if it still works. But who knows? But getting malt in the brewery to getting beer out the door shouldn't take a full year. So
Right.
we shall see.
Just not
But
gearing up to resell all the equipment. They're just going to actually make a beer, hopefully.
yeah. But I would absolutely love to see that, and really curious to see, with all the time that the new owners have taken, hopefully they've come up with a thoughtful approach to come back to the market. So I can hope, but we'll have to see what happens there.
Andy, what do you got for a 2026 prediction?
I think
Besides that collab idea,
I got my collab idea. I think we haven't seen the end of our large regional fold. I think that given how temperate it was this year, I think we're going to see something, but not a collapse like we've said in the past. It's just, that's where I point. It's not a fun thing to say, but it's something I'm hard pressed to say, because usually in here we talk about a new beer, a new style. I think people will generally double down on what they're good at and keep that. I think we're still waiting to see another large regional. But on the flip side of that, I think we're going to see more expansion of large regionals into new markets. So there's a cross thing right there where someone is going to maybe play it safe or fold down. But people are going to come back. And I will say, the one I've heard, maybe someone told me, a Yingling opportunity in the West Coast is being driven. So I think these very large, these more story brands that are crossing over.
That's a gamble.
It's a gamble, but I think this is where they want to see if there is energy in that regard.
Some juice there.
Is there juice? Is the juice worth the squeeze, as they say? I think that's where you're going to see. So I think you're going to see, those are my two kind of counterfactuals, maybe, is that maybe someone's going to end, but I think people are going to try to see if there's opportunities on coast to coast.
So I was mulling this one around, and you guys are going to have to all follow me on this one because it's mostly factual, and you guys can poke holes in this one. So we know this to be fairly true is the macrofication of craft beer, or the whole buying up the craft breweries and blending in with craft beer, like the stuff that AB did about 5 years ago, and Coors and all that wave seems like it's over. Like they've tapped out on that, right? The high end or whatever. They've kind of tapped out on trying to assimilate to craft beer. Coors all but dumped off their craft brands, right, to Tilray, and that seems to be kind of floundering depending on what market you're in. And then my prediction is the gastropub signature burger, $20 burger, knife in the bun, 30 beers on tap. Those places are going to drop like flies, just based on the economy we're in, the labor costs, and people's appetite for a $24 burger with a knife through it. Those two things that I mentioned are going to raise the tide for regular restaurants and more pedestrian places. The quality of their craft offerings are going to go up, because there seems like there's an opening now that might have been made by that brief stay from the big guys. Budweiser bringing in, an Elysian handle or a Golden Road IPA handle, or all the stuff that, Coors did, Miller Coors did. I think now these sales reps, now that these signature burger places are dropping, these salespeople are going to be hungry to still keep selling the beer, and we're going to have even more access to even better beer in 2026.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I think any brewery is trying to sell to as many places, and when places close, they have to go somewhere. I mean, to that point, there will be things that, if it's not the macro aliased craft brewery, right? Something that's relying on macro money and maybe kickbacks to get a tap handle, they're going to be only on merit. It'll be tougher for those people, but I mean, if there's less tap handles, then less breweries have to exist, or breweries have to sell themselves locally. But then maybe that changes the the thought process. I don't need a sales force out in Sacramento. I need a sales force locally and then own a region versus owning a wide footprint and being shallow. Be deeper and closer, not narrower and deeper, not wide and narrow.
Right.
Wide and shallow. Yeah.
Right. And it was interesting, seeing that, everybody kind of thought that the big guys were going to roll on everybody. And I would say that there's like a new generation of that, and it's more palatable. People haven't turned, or at least beer lovers, beer drinkers don't seem to have turned their back on Bell's. And then the people that buy Voodoo Ranger are dads, right? Dads and uncles.
Truck drivers, anyone in a convenience store that needs a couple beers.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's put it that way. Like, people aren't going, I'm not drinking a two-hearted ale at 7-Eleven because they sold out to the man. Like, that's not happening. Right. So that new wave of acquisitions seem to be doing fine, but they're also kind of blending in with the smaller people. So it's kind of sure, they have more resources, the Bells of the world or the New Belgiums, but it's still, it's not a us versus them situation anymore. People aren't thinking about, oh, is this a craft beer or not a craft beer anymore? And I think, it's a second part of my 2026 prediction is the term craft beer is fading away. People are just, it's good beer or not good beer.
Yeah, and I think to kind of the inverse side of that is, have we seen the full market impact of the increased domestic capacity that these Japanese brewers have bought? They could be making all their beer. I don't know how much of it's still imported. I feel like it's maybe not 100% domestically produced. I'm not sure exactly how that mix is working out right now, but I would think that the increased, freshness and cost advantages they've kind of purchased by, operating here, it should pay off. That was the long-term bet they made. I don't think, these breweries were bought solely for the craft brands.
Right. Right.
They were some, when they're working, right? But, that's always one of the interesting options is, I had an Asahi on tap when I was in Denver judging GABF this year.
Right.
And I was like, wow, this is like the best tasting Asahi I've had in years.
That's great.
And then someone told me, they were like, hey, like, at least draft, they're brewing here now. It's Octopyrite.
Okay. That makes sense.
So, yeah. And so, and I know like Stone's cranking out Sapporo cans. So, yeah. And it's certainly, that's been great for Stone as far as like giving them a crazy shot in the arm production wise,
Right. Yep. And yeah, I don't know what stopped me. I still think of old stinky crappy Sapporo cans when I think, and I don't ever think, ooh, this was made 90 miles from my house. I should probably try this.
Yeah. I always like the Kirin Ichiban was always one of my favorites. If I had a bottle of Japanese beer, it was brewed at the Anheuser-Busch brewery in Van Nuys.
Right.
And so, and you see that born on date on there, you get that thing pretty fresh, and it was always really tasty.
Right.
One of those nice, it's, it's a really rich, nice all malt lager. It's awesome.
Right. Right. So then, I still, I don't know how you guys feel about this prediction though of, the moniker of craft kind of fading away. It really helped launch good beer, but I feel like it's past the butt of the joke now and just not something that people are thinking about.
In the social media, in the social network movie, it's not the Facebook, it's just Facebook. It's not craft beer, it's just beer. It's cleaner.
Right.
Just beer.
Right.
Yeah.
You probably, Sam, you're exposed to more pedestrians at your place of work than you are geeks that are ticking every beer that you guys drop, but I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, it's both, I think like our beer club has been this amazing way to get some of our most hardcore enthusiastic fans in here and get FaceTime with them and
Right.
make a lot of really cool beers that we wouldn't be able to do. I mean, our barrel program has had this crazy second life because of the beer club,
Right.
where we're now putting out more barrel aged beer, doing more collabs, doing like more than we ever did in the past. We're just doing it on a smaller scale, right? We're just not trying to get your Sakava and Anniversary Ale, you know, on the shelf of every chain that we're in our entire distribution footprint like we used to. You know, but yeah, on the flip side of that, I think, you know, the amount of craft brewers that make light lager now, and how it's interesting. So like breweries, you know, in order to find viability and to find, you know, a future path forward, I think once you have the customers in the door, you realize that a lot of people drink everything, right? Like there were never too many craft exclusive drinkers, you know, and I think like if you're deep in the beer geek world, it's easy to forget that. But
Right.
like most people, you know, I remember, you know, meeting people way back in the day when I was first in it, you know, back in like the rapier days, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, man, like, oh, I love IPAs. I love getting a bomber of like, you know, Ninkasi or whatever." And, you know, but then I'll have one of those and then, you know, I'll switch to Bud Light, you know, and drink some of those. And, you know, my younger self would look at that and go, "Oh my God, like
That's
what's wrong with
disgusting.
you?"
No. Yeah.
You know, I had just come on, you know, like gotten out of my college era where, you know, I didn't want to drink any more cheap light beer ever. And I thought, you know, IPAs and, you know, barrel aged stouts were all I ever wanted. But, you know, with maturity comes wisdom, right? So no, but
Right.
I think there's a great mix where two things happened. Like as craft became normal and craft breweries became normal and mainstream everywhere, everyone knew a craft brewery that drank beer, right? It's like, you know, everyone that's a beer drinker essentially at least knows of the breweries around them, even if they don't go all the time, and knows, you know, it's not some weird thing. And so, you know, catering to those people as well that want to go and drink a light beer, and it's not really like stigmatized anymore. You know, brewers used to say, "Oh, I only make the blonde for the people that just drink Budweiser or whatever." And I think that like as brewers developed and brewing as a, I'd say like brewing as a trade in the US has really matured a lot over the last decade. And so you have this incredibly deep bench of brewers who have gotten really good at making lagers and, you know, lighter beers, specifically really well balanced beers. And so I think you see a lot of really good beers out there that do appeal to more mainstream drinkers. And, you know, that took some maturity and that took some skill to develop. It didn't just happen overnight. So now we're there and you can go to a lot of breweries and get good alternatives to macro beer. So it kind of, yeah, like you're saying, it blurs the lines between like what's craft beer, what's just beer. And if, you know, you can get a Mexican lager, which is probably like, if I had to guess, what's the number one selling style in Southern California craft brewery tap rooms outside of West Coast IPA, it's probably Mexican lager, right?
Oh yeah.
Everybody's
if not
got
the
one.
number one.
It's
right?
probably, yeah, it could outsell it easily. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think, you know, and obviously we got a shout out to Constellation and Modelo and their incredible rise, the work they did. And, you know, I mean, you know, that beer did so well that, you know, Ballast Point became a rounding error for them and they had, you know, they didn't even care about it anymore.
Right.
You know, which is unfortunate. And, you know, it's like, I mean, it's great to see Ballast Point is living on and getting, you know, some new energy, and that's awesome. But, you know, Modelo became so normal and made Mexican lager so ubiquitous that craft brewers all had to jump on it. And that slightly fuller flavor profile that the Mexican lager style represents compared to an American light
Right.
plays into the craft brewers kind of niche very well, right? Where it's a little more flavorful. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great Mexican style lager being made at craft breweries now. I mean, it's not all super authentic. You know, you see
Right.
a lot of brewers are like, oh, it's actually a Helles or it's actually this, or, you know,
Right.
it's like, it's a lot of it's branding because, you know, like what is Mexican lager versus American lager? You
Right.
know, that's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down right now.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's really blurred the lines and it's definitely a new world.
Right. Any more predictions before we wrap it up with our wishes? Pickle beer, anybody? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
mean, that'll happen. It's all.
No,
all
I want to another style prediction, but, you know, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's people were saying the year of the lager for so long.
Yeah.
And I think we just kind of slowly, like I was just saying, we kind of eased ourselves into that. It didn't happen in 1 year. It was a slow crawl over a decade. And, you know, West Coast IPA obviously never went away on the West Coast.
Right.
I think it's going to continue to see some penetration in other parts of the country. I remember a few years ago going to, either like the Southeast, East Coast, even in the Midwest now, it's like, I still worry sometimes, going out, let's say CBC last year in Indianapolis, you go out to one day we went to, a restaurant that's like one of those, $25 burger and, all the craft handle kind of places. And, there's a few IPAs on tap. And I'm thinking to myself, like, they don't
They're
all
not gonna be
say,
good.
like,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what is this? Like, is this hazy? Is it not? So that's the thing that I realized, that there's a lot of regions in the country that IPA wasn't a super popular style before hazy IPA took over.
Right.
And
Right.
so to them, it's like, so you never know what you're going to get. Like, you might get a hazy and they won't necessarily call it hazy. Like, it's like the West Coast brewers learned early on, unless you're like Monkish, or like, unless you're one of the couple breweries that like your entire reputation was built on, that's what our IPA is like.
Yeah.
If you were already an IPA brewer, you had to call a hazy beer hazy. You couldn't
Right.
confuse people. You piss people off. Nobody
Yep.
liked that. And so you go to these other parts of the country, and that's still like not really the case, because
Just an IPA.
West Coast IPA wasn't default first.
Right.
They were still drinking ambers, and so it's like, so yeah, sometimes I think that that's going to get sorted out in the next year. Hopefully West Coast, becomes more ubiquitous in other regions. Brewers, I think, are learning like what modern West Coast IPA is like. Everybody knows now, where like a few years ago, I would see posts from brewers in other regions of the country, and be like, oh, I want to make a West Coast IPA, so I've got to use C60 and lots of Chinook, and it's like, and we're like, well, it's like, not anymore.
really.
You don't have to. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, hopefully we sort that all out, and you can have a proper West Coast versus hazy, or New England, or whatever you want to call it. And sorry, Midwest and other regions, that I don't know if your style is ever going to stick. I know I saw an article recently on like, oh, what's the Midwest IPA style? And I'm like, yeah, like, okay, it's like, Two Hearted and like beautiful beer,
Sure.
but we'll see. I just want to know, is it
even Alpha King is too malty from West Coast perspective, right? All right,
Yep.
let's be clear.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But no, I mean, modern West Coast IPA did go very extreme in the light, pale, light body, dry direction, and got away from malt. And so, like, I don't know, we could see a bit of a return to malt, but I don't think you ever go back. I think whenever a trend comes back, it comes around in a new way. It never comes back. Like we've learned too much. We can't go back.
I think last year one of my predictions, or it was kind of a blend between a prediction and a wish, was I thought the Lucre side pull was going to catch on like wildfire, and even people that were making shitty lager were going to embrace the foamy big mugs of beer, and I didn't see it. It just didn't catch on mainstream, so to speak. Like I thought every bar in America was going to have a side pull, but it was really just wishful thinking.
It's just too hard. It's
then to
it's
maintain
like,
it, right? It's just,
yeah, it takes a lot. Like if you really want to make that work and do it well, it takes a lot of work on the service side. Brewery like Cohesion in Denver, that's gone all in on it,
right?
Like, or Sacred Profane, back east, like brewers that make that their thing put a ton of work into it to do it well, and it's a level of service that like I absolutely love. But I think like if you're the brewery that's if you're making not very great lager to begin with,
right,
what are the chances you're going to put in the effort to do that correctly?
Right. You have floaties and disgusting beer. All right. Well, so wrapping it up, wishes for 2026. Andy, what's your wish for this year?
Well, as I always end the episode, when we're coming up to May, which is the Homebrew Fest season, please, my wish is for you to attend the Southern California Homebrewers Festival 2026, Temecula, California, May 1st and 2nd. I'm not in charge anymore. I have no more rules. I just
blacked
get to have
out
fun.
by 10:30 in the morning.
I get to have fun. No blacking out. That's for the young crowd. Okay, we get to enjoy respectfully. But come on out to Homebrew Fest, calhomebrewers.org. Danny, you're always invited. Sam, you've yet to attend. You got to get out this year. Let's make it happen.
Tons of hot chicks, Sam. Oh my God.
You're also all invited to my A Brewery event, a party the night before at my campground, where you must bring a bottle of brewery beer and you must open it. You don't have to drink it. You just have to open it. We're just trying to clear the cellar out. Just get rid of them. We just try whatever you want. I'm open to all of them.
God, I feel
Try
like
'em
there's
all.
one in arm's reach right now.
There's too many of them out there. It's like nuclear proliferation. We're all going to
Bring a
agree.
BB gun.
We're all agree to just destock these things. Let's get rid of a few, try them. Hey, this turned out great. This didn't turn out great. And I'll try to bring some side beers. Maybe we'll just try to find a local brewery to bring us the rinsing glass beer. But come on out to Homebrew Fest. It's always a great time. Danny can attest to this. He was there for about 5 minutes a few years ago. He had the best 5 minutes of his life there.
My limo driver was charging by the minute.
He was just click, 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 click. So it's great. Pro brewers on Friday night, homebrew Saturday all day. It's raffle band. It's amazing. So come on out May 1st and 2nd.
That's beautiful. Any wishes for 2026 for beer, for the world of beer?
I wish that more breweries embrace like kind of niche service styles. We were just talking about Lucre, and I think that Czech style pour is one. But Dovetail in Chicago, I've not yet been there, unfortunately. But I'm always following the latest on what they're doing, and I think it's like tap room or it's beer hall month or something. That's the last email I read from them, where they're doing different theme nights, where they're doing a Vienna night where they're pouring Vienna lager, and then it's like with food that goes with it, and Czech night that it's all just Czech style, and then they do a Kolsch night where it's Kolsch style service. And I absolutely love that stuff. They've done Japanese style, like standing bar. And yeah, I'd like to see more breweries do that. And I think like make it fun, like make, kind of like riffing on like maybe, like bottle shares and festivals have evolved and, aren't on what they used to be. But if breweries can tap into that, like making it an experience and an event coming out, like, yeah, you don't have to put a ridiculous amount of money into building this like beautiful space that's like, high concept, whatever. But if you can nail the quality of your service and do something really unique that I can't just go to the random bar down the street that has craft beer and get, because they still pour everything in a shaker. I mean, hopefully, their glassware is clean and the lines are clean and like I'm getting a good beer there. But, it's my normal bar experience, right? So I think brewers still have that unique advantage where they can specialize and do something really cool and take it to the next level, and hopefully drive some more interest that way. So I'd like to see more of that.
Now, Sam and I didn't coordinate our answers, I swear to you guys, but I have a very, very similar wish for 2026, and that's to have people make beer more fun in 2026 and not be bashful about playing with your beer, so to speak. More micheladas, more blending. Let's say you buy a mix pack of IPA, maybe making your own blend at home. More, I used to go to these wood shop events hosted by Chris Quiroga, where he had a line of coffee French presses where you'd infuse your own stouts at home. I want people to have more fun with their beer. I know that people kind of got looked down upon for these, the era of smoothie beer and milkshake IPAs. But I would say have fun with beer, enjoy beer. Let's come up with something else like a michelada, but I'm here for having fun, Radler, Shandies. I think that's all a great way to enjoy beer and even open it up to new drinkers. So anyway, we've gone long. This was a great episode. Happy New Year, everybody. We still have a couple more weeks so we can say that.
I think the ship has sailed on that one, Doc. I'm done with saying
I go all the way up until the 32nd.
Or 32nd? Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
It all depends if it's leap year. It's all good.
Nice.
And so anyway, thank you guys. We'll drop some links in the show notes where you can go to Andy's little bottle share brewery party and where you can find Sam and drink some of his beers. So thank everybody for tuning in. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Later.
Dreaming about life, and you're gonna walk into the light. reason for all life is the sun in the sky. I gotta stop wondering why. I had some stress, but it's gone. Didn't know what was wrong. Not really sure what we have to hide. Have to explain the need to get by. 'Cause everyone dies. The dark side, you think about blank, and you're gonna walk towards the darkness. The light side, you're dreaming about life, and you're gonna walk into the light. The dark side, you're thinking about blank, and you're gonna walk towards the darkness. The light side, you're dreaming about blank, and you're gonna walk into the light on earth. The dark side.